We've been having a good time, and this is our Bible study night. 6:30, we have dinner together. Those that come, and then 7 o'clock we have our Bible study. And we're in the book of John, chapter 1, and this is our third session. We had an introductory class, right? Mm-hmm. And then we had our first session for John chapter 1. And I sent you home with some homework and never realizing that the following week would be our Passover Seder. So
we had 2 weeks to
Yes.
get all about it.
That's right. No! 2 weeks to do your homework. So we're in verse 11, and the question was, what does the verse mean? All right? He came into his own, and those who were his own did not receive him.
That verse?
Yeah.
The Israelites.
He gives his own. I know it wasn't the. I found out when I was reading your recap, and I didn't work. The answer was there, but I did a homework before that. I have to excuse.
So the answer
Yes, so it is. No, probably what I. He came to that which was his own creation, but his own people did not receive it. That was what I.
I think I agree with what I meant, at least what I looked at. First, I did a drill down on that verse own. And where it is used there, it's in the Greek, it's idios. It means uniquely one's own, stronger than the simple possessive pronoun, like I own a car kind of thing. This emphatic adjective means a private, personal ownership. So that's what I got out of that word. And then I started cross-referencing where his own was used in other places. And, especially in John 17, given to the Son his own, you granted authority to the Son over all people, so that the Son will give eternal life to those you have given him. So kind of that ownership of his own. Paul talked about his own in Ephesians are those of faith, those that trust in him are his own. Mm-hmm. So the part that gets confusing is he came into the world, and it says his own, he came to his own, but his own did not receive him, but then it said they received him. So I think it has something to do with that cross time dimension thing of eternity and the temporal, the eternal and the temporal, kind of doing that intersection thing every now and then that screws with your head. But his own are the ones that the Father gave him before the creation of the universe. And so that meant everybody then, and then because Jesus is also praying, I not only pray for these might be my own, but I also pray for those that will believe in my name because of their message.
Okay.
So that's
Okay, well, I'm reading the notes down in the bottom of this one. It says, he came into his own. It says that his own things or domain. And then the second part, his own did not receive him. That is his own people. All right, so his own would be the world itself, but then his people didn't receive. So apparently there's two different Greek words
Yes.
for own. And with two different.
We're in verse 11, chapter 1, verse 11.
I remember that was the one, right?
So,
Is that the complete Jewish Bible commentary?
no, it's
No,
just.
that's
That's New King James.
Okay.
But it's got some notes
Good.
at the bottom, so.
My translation says, his own homeland, his own people. His own homeland and people could be either the world and humanity or the land of Israel and the Jewish people. The latter seems more relevant since he spent his entire life in and near Eretz Israel. Yet Yeshua, the living word, created the entire world. So the entire world could well be in view here.
Okay.
But isn't that the Jewish people? I mean, his own.
Let's let the text speak, and then we'll.
Okay.
Yeah, but those are good questions. Those are the questions. Now remember in chapter 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word what? Remember, I showed you the difference between the aorist, past tense, which is a snapshot, and the perfect tense, which is was doing something and is continuing to do something. So clearly, the argument from the very beginning is that before creation, that is, it's not a direct quote of Genesis 1:1. It alludes to it. But Yeshua was before Genesis 1:1.
Yes.
Right? So Yeshua was, there's nothing created that he didn't create. Large picture here. Okay? So the creation that he created was the universe. And part of the universe was the world. And the first own here, normally that word deals with things. So he came into his own possession. If he created the world, then the world belongs to him. The second word, own, has to do with people. And here's the question. Like Mary brought Yeshua into her own home. Okay? Okay. So the second, is it the Jewish people, as it usually is translated, or commensurate to the creation of the world? He came into his own world that he created, but the people of his own world did not receive him.
See, I read a commentary on the internet that said it was the world.
The world.
So
Yeah.
that goes back to let us make man in our
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Man was made in the image of God to serve God, to be in fellowship with God. I'm
So
sorry,
that
sir.
means is general world
That's what I
of
read.
humanity.
Yes, because that's, see, the argument in John chapter 1 is that Yeshua is the creator. He is the one that did the creating. There wasn't anything created that he didn't create. And so when he comes into his own, it's what he created. He possesses what he owns. The world is his.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if I came to my house and the people of the house, right, which I let live there, don't receive me.
They changed the locks.
Well, yeah, okay. So it's not, in this case, it is not specifically the Jewish people that's his own. It's humanity.
Humanity.
So that's
Humanity
why I said
rejected.
fall.
Yeah.
The Romans rejected him, the Samaritans, okay?
Yeah.
So it kind of ties into the fall
Yes,
in
of course.
Genesis. So, he created all this, but then after the fall, it didn't recognize who he was.
And it's the same way, the fall is a rejection of the Creator.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the coming of Yeshua, there's a rejection of the Creator again. Okay, so, huh?
First Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. But, so the point is, John's point, and he's going to make this very emphatically, the need to be born again.
Yeah.
And the reason that he's going to make that point emphatically is that we rejected the Creator way in the beginning, and here we're doing it again. Nothing's changed.
Wow.
It means that something has to change within the person. The person has to change. It can't. There's no teaching that's going to reform anybody to the degree that the Creator will not get this rejection. So, you okay?
Yeah, no, I was just looking for something as
Good,
an
I'm
example.
glad
because
what I read.
the picture of that
Yeah.
was, I'll use that couch. So it's like, back here, before Genesis 1:1,
Wow.
Yeshua, everything was supposed to be in Yeshua, and everything was going to be created through the Messiah. We were supposed to be his sons, is what Ephesians said.
Yeah, until the
So it's
fall,
like,
yeah.
all of this was planned before the word, before the universe was even spoken into existence from the eternal. And then the Messiah comes somewhere here on the couch.
He was a carpenter, so he built the furniture.
He built the furniture. But it's just like, it was just that thing about how eternity, we're just in the middle of this eternity thing. That's the best way I could just say it, they're like, two poles here. He spoke it from here, the couch came into existence, that's the universe, not just the earth, but the whole universe. And then he came into this from the eternal.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm really going with that, but for me, that is just a really big revelation.
So he came into that which had a purpose
Yeah, but his
To-
own, he created it.
what? To provide a habitation for that which was created, i.e. the human beings, and those very human beings reject the
Yeah.
architect.
See, and I think it's anti-Semitic when people say, oh, that just refers to the Jewish people.
Well,
Yeah, that's what I thought at the beginning.
we were all taught that.
I know,
We were all
but it's
taught
not,
that,
'cause
but
I looked at
really-
Even it was gotquestions.org, and I think it was them that said it's the world.
Well, GodQuestions.org.
I
Has
think
a new
that was
respect.
in-
So from the
Oh,
beginning,
it
it was
was true,
already
it was
done.
something I looked up and it said it's the world.
Right. What was that?
A horn.
Oh, a horn. I thought it was a shofar.
So Rabbi, that was saying
Yeah.
the trees that was crying out.
The rocks, the trees, yes. In other words, creation is trying to say, what's wrong with you people? We accept him.
Yeah.
The rocks accept him.
Yes.
Actually, Isaiah 1:3 says, "The ox knows its owner, and the donkey its master's crib, but Israel does not know, my people do not consider." In other words, the animals know who their owner is, and
Wow.
Yeshua is our owner. Yet, if I was born back then, I hate to say it, I probably would have rejected him too.
So, but remember, it's not just Israel. It's humanity. And John's going to show that by his language, for God so loved
The
the
world.
world.
Yeah.
Okay?
And that
It's-
goes
It's
with what
much
he said.
larger.
Yeah, he said whoever believes in him will not perish, but in this verse he said, but in 12 he said, but as many as to all many that were but to as many as receive him.
You're
you
going
know?
ahead? You're going ahead of me?
Well, I'm saying that goes along with John 3:16.
Okay, just go ahead of me, Debbie. Don't spoil my teaching.
No, I'm not gonna do that.
Well, you go home, Deborah, take over.
I'm sorry.
All
right. So keep in mind, let the text speak to you.
Yeah.
Okay, we have preconceived notions because we had some teacher that had a preconceived notion, and we got that from them. And I don't want to be the big shot, I'm not really trying to be innovative. The text has something to say. And so let's listen for the text. And that's really, hear my word, this is God speaking. So it's a universal, it's not that God's done with Israel in any way, shape, or form, but God started out saving the world. And then he went myopic to the Jewish people because he couldn't do it with a clan. He couldn't do it with a group. He couldn't do it with regulations. So he goes myopic and realizes way back in the beginning, I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to do it myself. I'm going to have to do this myself. I'm going to have to do this in such a way that mankind can have a free choice, but be born again. Get a new chance as if the slate is clean. And to me, this makes a great deal of sense. Okay? Over and over and over, the same mistake. All right, now we get Deborah's verses. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become the children of God. This is not Jew, Gentile. This is Samaritan. This is Roman. This is Jewish. This is whoever, as many as received him. To them he gave the right to become the children of God. Now, why does John start out with this, whereas Matthew starts out with a little more Jewish message? Because John, remember, is writing about the Tzemach of God, the Tzemach Elohim, the deity, yes, the God, right? And so his lineage goes right back to God, which shows a clear intent through Israel, yes, but for all humanity. So he's going to emphasize that.
While Matthew is targeting Jewish culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the context of it. Right? Even to those that believe on his name, who were born not of blood, nor the will of the flesh, nor the will of man, but of God.
So,
No lineage, no
Which verse?
12 and 13. Go ahead, Sarah.
So if Matthew is refers to him as a king, then he refers as for the Jewish people, right? Then as a man and a servant is also for the world.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because in my Bible it says, or a husband's will.
Yes.
So how does that work?
Because the word aner is, I'll get to it, but the normal, the general term for man or mankind is anthropos. But here aner is used. It's more of a husband to a wife or a brother to a brother's more of a relational thing. So that's certainly a possibility. Yeah. I'm not saying that's the only
No,
possibility.
I mean, he has the other ones, but I didn't
Yeah.
know the relevance of that.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So here we have, just like there was a big divide, a big division, a big contrast in verses 4 to 5. Remember what that was? Light and darkness? Remember that? There's no gray. There's either light or there's not light. Okay? You can either see something or you can't see something, right? So here there is a contrast. Did you catch what the contrast was? Here? Huh?
Suppressed it.
Well, it's between
You say 12, that's 12, right?
12 and 13.
Yeah, 12 and 13.
It's the difference between receiving and
Receiving
rejection,
Yeshua and not.
right? Came into his own received him not, right? But to those that receive, they have the light. They believe in the light. Those that don't receive, they're in the darkness. Now, nobody in these days where everything's got to be politically correct likes that kind of talk. Okay, what do you mean I'm in the darkness? Aren't we all the same? No, we're not the same. What, your religion is better? Yeah. It's better. Why would I believe in something less than better or best?
Really?
You know?
That's a
So
thing.
it's not a matter of me lording it over you because I am better than you. It is because I believe this is the truth and other things are not the truth. I believe there's light and there's darkness. I believe there's receiving God's truth and not receiving God's truth. So receiving is equivalent to what? Believing. And not receiving is equivalent to unbelieving. Okay? And John's going to make that more and more explicit. So notice here what happens. As many as received him, he gave them the right to what? To become. Now that's very important because we didn't, I know every child is pure and every child is, but that's not true. Okay? We are not born with the image of God. We lost that image. Okay? We are born into darkness. And we need the light. And if somebody can see it that way, they will be desperate for the light. If somebody feels, well, we're all children of God, we're all in the image of God, we're all, equally preferred, we're all the blah, 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 blah. There's no impetus because there's then many ways to God. Okay? No, we're born. They became, you see that? John is saying something different. They became the children of God. They became what they were always intended to be. That's what I like to tell people. Wouldn't you like to become what you were always intended to become?
Yes. And the assumption there is to receive, meaning you have to be not self-willing, but have the understanding. This is why baptism for newborns, the way some denominations doesn't work.
It's not
Yeah,
going
well,
to.
it's not.
Okay?
Right.
If I receive an inheritance, an adoption, a new birth, then I have rejected the old birth. Okay, I'm saying that. I'm not saying anything about my family. I'm not saying anything about my brothers and sisters, my mother and father. I'm saying nothing about that. What I'm saying is I am firmly rejecting being born into darkness. And I wish to be born into light. I wish to receive that light.
But when you receive it, it cannot be given to you by a parent. You you have to.
Oh, yeah.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
Yeah, you, in other words, you can't be double-minded about it. Well, I was born into darkness, some of that I like.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then I like the light too, but, Yeshua said, I wish that you were hot or cold, but since if you're lukewarm, that doesn't cut it. You can't be in two camps. All right. There's a change of nature. There are the born ones. We become children of God by being born again, and he's going to use that terminology. So the emphasis is on what? Is on the little ones, the children, the delight that God has in his little ones, the children of God, a father to his children, right? And there's going to be a modeling in the person of Yeshua, all right? So it's not of natural descent. It's not a physical process. Because my parents were believers doesn't mean I am. Because they were unbelievers doesn't mean I will be an unbeliever. Okay, so physical descent, because they were Jewish, I'm Jewish, but it doesn't mean I'm saved. It doesn't mean I've received the position of a child of God. I have the covenants, I have the promises, I have the wooing of God, I have preferential treatment in the body of the Messiah, only because of what we've gone through, right? But not in a sense of better than, because we're of the fathers, we're of the promise, okay? So, not of natural descent, nor of human decision, okay? That means this rules out what? It's not out of any biological urge. Right? It's not out of any passion. It's like creation. The origin of God was out of his desire. Right? Or of a husband's will. That's where that word comes from. Okay, right? This kind of birth is not the outcome of a legal marriage. Okay, that fits along with all the other. Really, all of these things are saying the same thing in a different way. Right?
Are you still hanging around 13?
Yeah, I'm not ready for 14 yet.
Okay.
Jesus is the bride, then it is a marriage.
What's that?
Or Jesus is the bridegroom, then it is a marriage.
Okay, but we're also the children, right? We're the children. Right now, John is emphasizing the children becoming the children of God. Okay, that bridegroom symbol is totally valid, but it's in a different context. It's for a different teaching. Right now, we're the children of God. We have become something that we weren't before.
It's
right?
also a future tense.
It's future until we receive it.
Well, I mean, the bridegroom part.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
We're the bridegroom engaged. We will be the bridegroom married that is coming. We'll be the bride.
right, yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, so it fits the terminology. Not of human decision, not biological, or not of your husband's will, not of any of these human factors, but of God, right? It's spiritual, not physical, right? So it's physical birth. And we're going to talk about this with Nicodemus in chapter 3, right? Yeshua's got to explain this. Nicodemus, you got to think in a different way, All right, so the writer is laying this emphasis on believing and receiving, becoming part of the light, walking in the light, desires of the light. And then in 14, this is the fourth statement about the word. Would somebody read that?
And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory. The glory as only the begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth.
Okay, so this word begotten drives everybody crazy. And for centuries after centuries after centuries, and it's just a simple teaching. He was begotten in two ways, and John in chapter 1 says that. One, he was in the beginning before creation with God. He was the Son with God, and there's no one else that was the Son. The unique stamp of the glory of God was upon the Son, and no one else had that magnitude of stamp of the glory of God. The Son had the stamp of the glory of God. That's why what John says here. Okay, these are not Greek concepts, right? These are creation concepts, right? And second of all, he is begotten of God, and no one ever else was by what? By the incarnation, by him becoming a man, by coming into a new state of being, if you will, a human being instead of the supernatural being, right? So there's one mediator between God and man, the man, Yeshua HaMashiach. 1 Timothy 3, I think. Okay? The man. So he's begotten of the Father before anything was created. No one else has that station. He's begotten of the Father by him leaving his first station and becoming what? A man. This Father has no other sons like that. Are we the sons and daughters of God? Yes, but we don't bear the glory except through Yeshua. In Yeshua, we can bear that glory, that stamp, which will not become totally apparent until what? When he comes back again. Remember, we had this elaborate, the kingdom is now, but not yet. Right? We have it. It's ours. The total manifestation will be at his coming.
Yeshua is our older brother.
Not really, not really. I know that teaching, but I don't think that's a good way to see it. I think that we are joint heirs, and an heir is a relative, okay? But we're joint heirs by being joined with him, not by being born like him, okay? It's not two princes or a princess. It's not like this Balagan that you got there in England going on right now. Yeah.
I'm witnessing to a Jehovah's Witness, it's not the other way around, and I'm struggling with it because this begotten word, I mean, she's saying, well, Yeshua was born to, was created. So I'm struggling with how to rebut her arguments. She also refers to Colossians 1:15. I think that's one of their standard verses. I'm just trying to think of an articulate way to explain it to her, but she probably is not going to believe anything I say anyway.
Well, if he's the only begotten, it means he's one of a kind. That's all it means.
Yeah, it's special.
It's not, if we see it only as a birth, that somehow God birthed him, God created, but that's not what John's trying to say at all. In fact, he's staying away from that. He's saying he wasn't birthed. He was only birthed at the what? Incarnation.
And that's not what the angel Gabriel told Mary anyway.
You're with child with the Holy Spirit.
With the Holy Spirit, right?
But the point is that the whole idea of, and by the way, this was a debate that went on for centuries. It still goes on, right? Same substance, similar substance. Nicene Creed hopefully handled that for us, if you like creeds. He is, God the Father has a son who's so unique, there's nothing like him.
Yeah, amen.
Okay? He's begotten of the Father because he's unique. When I beget a child, that child is in my image. But I can have another child that's in my image as well, and those two can look alike. But no one in their birth in this world looks like Yeshua. They don't look like Yeshua in the beginning before anything was, and they don't look like him when in the incarnation because he was a perfectly obedient child.
It says here he was full of grace and truth, and we are
Full
not. We're
of
not
grace
full
and truth.
But that's what
Okay.
we're becoming. It's a process. I mean, what I've been learning, now I'm gonna forget what I was gonna say.
That's what I did.
No, is that, like, when we're born into this world, when we
Yeah.
come in, we look like our mother and father. When you're born into Christ, you're gonna become looking like him. So it's a process of.
Only by connecting through
Right.
him.
Yes.
But in our natural birth, we look nothing like him,
Yeah.
No.
right? He's unique throughout all the ages. The only way to look like him is to tag into him. to receive him.
And to look at the Father and say, this is what I see.
Are we okay on this?
Yes.
We're reducing begotten to a comparison of supernatural birth and physical birth.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Supernatural
And the
being.
sacrifice,
What's
the
that?
sacrifice is greater than what he did at the cross. The sacrifice in the incarnation was that he would be forever changed, right? I mean, that's what this is starting to tell me, that's the magnitude of the sacrifice, that he would leave his station as the Son of God, still remain as the Son of God, but become one of us. To be the God-man means that he can never go back and be exactly how he was. You know, to step down into the creation and became.
That's why Paul
the
says.
sacrifice.
Paul says at the end of everything, he will give over everything to the Father so that God may be all in all. Okay? The Father and the Son are not co-equal. Okay? The Father is the Father. All right? I'm not saying anything about being weaker. I'm just saying that the Son has a unique position in being begotten, and it has nothing to do with reproduction. That's what I'm saying.
Are you
And
That's
saying-
the answer.
And this, what you just said was my biggest roadblock to getting here. Because everything that I've read, especially through Revelation, is Yeshua is at the right hand of the Father. He's subordinate to the Father. So how then can he be equal to the Father? It's a conundrum, a dilemma.
He's not equal.
But not apart from him.
He's not apart from him, absolutely not. But there will come a time where everything that's put under his feet, he's got to put everything under his feet, right? There will come a time. Yeah, he's going to put everything under his feet, death and hell and everything. There will come a time, and Paul says now, when he puts everything under his feet, it's understood that that's not the Father. The Father is not under his feet. And then when the end comes, he's going to give it all to the Father so that God can be all in all. In other words, there will be an original identity that will be just as, including all this incredible redemptive reality, just as it was in the beginning before creation.
1 Corinthians 15:27.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one they use.
I'm just saying that this is
But the
not,
point is, I have to agree with it
I
that
have heard-
Yeshua is not equal with the Father.
What do you do with the
So I
Father,
can
Son,
see
and
that.
Holy
But it's
Spirit?
still.
They are three, yet they are one.
Yeah.
you know what ontology is? Why is the Son the Son? Because it's the Son.
Yeah.
It's ontology. The name says this is the thing. This is the table. Is it the chair? No. We always knew it as the table. It's always been the table. Ontologically, this is the table. God is God, ontologically. You want me to explain it mechanically? Good luck.
Didn't he say the Father
Robin, are
was
you listening?
Accepted by faith, I guess.
We use our cell phone.
And it's like.
If you see me,
You see.
Me, I see my Father, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
how do you see who I am? How do you know who I am?
he's saying that everything that the Father is incarnated in me because I'm just like the Father.
Yeah.
If the Father would have become a man, this is what he'd look like. But it was my job. And this is what I look like. But this is what the Father would look like.
Are
Right?
you
But it was
saying
my
that-
job.
Are you saying that they're not co-equal? Does it mean that they just have different roles?
Different roles, absolutely, but it's not, they're not co-equal, okay? Otherwise, the Father, why didn't the Father come down?
Oh,
He has
yeah,
a different
that's
role.
true.
Yeshua even said that the Father was greater.
Okay.
Yeah,
He
that's
acknowledged it in
true.
the Gospels.
So,
But they don't make it equal at the same
but
time.
if you get bogged down into human hierarchy, that's where one of the problems is.
Oh,
If you
okay.
get bogged down into the status of human birth and how that occurs, that's going to be a problem. Okay, these verses are not dealing with those hierarchies or natural birth compared to a supernatural birth. You know, we're not comparing how people are reproduced in heaven. We don't even know if they are.
Yeah, well,
They probably are not. They're not given the marriage, right, at all.
Yeshua said that I haven't explained, you don't understand everything on earth. How could I explain everything to you in
Yes.
heaven? We haven't been taught what's in heaven.
yeah.
John, from a Jewish standpoint, is saying you've got to understand what was there at the beginning and what is here now. And what is here now is the only begotten Son of God, full of grace and truth. Right? Right?
Well, the good thing is we're not even throwing the Holy Spirit in the mix.
We'll wait on him. Right? We'll wait on him. All right. So he enters into a new dimension of existence through the gateway of human birth. That's the best way to say it.
Oh.
Think about what I just said. If we're not dwelling on the process of birthing, we're dwelling. This is going to be a science fiction movie, which I don't want. I don't want that. But he has entered. Yes, he has entered into a new dimension of existence. I don't mean literally a dimension, but a new status, a new persona, a new ongoing project of his existence through the process of human birth. Okay? So the work of redemption can only come through the process of human birth. Right? It's going to be this perfect man that will save mankind. Right? He's divine. He's just not allowed to use it, or he'll disobey the Father. He could. He could use it.
Well, that's what Peter. That's what Paul said when he says, those he would died, he did not consider himself equal. And there's a point that he said earlier about, he's giving up his deity, so he's at the highest of the highest, and he gives it up to come through a human birth to enter this world, to go from the highest of the highest to the lowest of the lowest, homeless, a refugee, poor, all this stuff, and so he takes one extreme to the other in order to save humanity.
I mean, I think, Dan, you got it. It's a huge. Yeah. What's that?
It says, rather he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant and being made in human likeness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what he had to do. In order to effect salvation, he had to be obedient in that.
You had to face temptation like we faced temptation.
Yeah, and obey God.
If he expects us to overcome temptation,
I
he
mean,
had to overcome temptation.
that's what's unique about the temptation of the enemy in the wilderness, because with the three temptations, when he's like, it is said, that you have this legion of angels waiting, and his rebuttal. The point I'm making is the enemy was trying to get him to use his divine power, right? His divine power, and he still refused to. Yeah.
I
So-
personally think that had to have been a struggle for him. 40 days, no food, no water. The devil didn't come to him at the beginning. He didn't come to him at the middle. He came to him in the end, and he was at
His weakest.
his weakest
Yeah.
point. And that had to have been a challenge.
Okay.
Even though he overcame because he knew who he was, that wasn't a cakewalk. I think he had to, I don't know if I want to use the word struggle, but
Wasn't he?
it had to be a tremendous challenge as he went through that.
He was hungry.
Yeah.
There was no cake.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Let's take a look at this. He dwelt, the word was made flesh. The word, the memra. Remember that?
Yeah.
Memra was made flesh and dwelt among us. Okay, so that word skene, it's not exactly the word, but it comes from that. That particular word is the word used when you wish to denote tabernacling, specifically at Sukkot. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he tabernacled with us. It's a word that in the Greek language is used of when you invite friends, relatives, and neighbors into your festival house, right? So this has Sukkot overtones. He tabernacled, he dwelt among us. The tabernacle was a temporal dwelling, right? So he temporarily dwelt among us. One day, and we'll see it later on in John, the tabernacle will become a permanent fixture. It'll become untemporal, and we'll dwell with him forever. But keep that in mind. The skene is the tabernacling with God, right? And it's used, the Hebrew equivalent is used in Isaiah chapter 4, which I don't want to go on that rabbit trail right yet. Okay, we'll do it when we get to the other scriptures dealing with Sukkot. We're going to go back to Isaiah.
Spell
Huh?
Skena, can you spell it?
Yeah, Skaynaay. I'm doing it phonetically.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the Word was made flesh. And the Word was with God, permanent situation. The Word became, right? That's different, right? The Word became flesh is a process of that journey for some reason, which John's going to. And he lived, he tabernacled, he pitched a tent, he dwelt with us temporarily, right? Who? The man, Yeshua HaMashiach. First Timothy. It's either 2:3 or 3:3. All right? He dwelt with us, accepting the conditions of the human life, the environment of human life, a Jewish environment, which would be very natural because the Torah was preserved by the Jews, the understanding by the Jews. Doesn't mean everybody understood it, but he had the capacity to delve into their very books to show them the meaning of those books and therefore the meaning to the rest of the world.
Oh, he wrote them.
He wrote them. Okay, he's the inspirer, right? Okay, so I'm not going to do that either. Okay, so this is the incarnation is the full manifestation of grace and truth. Why? Because it is the most direct way to show compassion upon a people who have no intellect for the eternal. It's not that they don't wish to. It's not that they don't discuss it. It's that the human race is limited. It's limited by its vocabulary and its experience. So the most compassionate and direct way to deal with remaking the person, along with the free will of the person, is to become a person. And the Son obediently, now see, take a look at the station. The Son is not the Father. The Father is over the Son. But the Son is the obedient Son that says, yes, I'll go. I'll do it. I will go. I'll become the human being. I've got it good here. I know it, you know. It's almost inconceivable for me to do that. You know? I mean, would you become an ant or a worm? We don't have compassion on an ant or a worm. I don't. You know?
I always like to think of it that he followed Adonai's own 10 Commandments, right? Honor thy father and mother.
Yeah.
So he's not, in other words, he too is not, he's also subjected to the, Adonai, the father's will, right?
Yes.
His commandments.
But in that sense, it is because of the perfect relationship, it is a perfect obedience.
Yeah.
And we can't parallel that on earth.
No.
Because there's not a perfect relationship.
He knows the father knows, and
Yeah.
he knows the father.
Yeah.
And then he was also the author.
Yes, but all I'm trying to say is that the goal is for God to have a perfect relationship with Adam, which he had. And perfect relationship, perfect obedience. And then free will is a dangerous game. Here we have the second Adam. And in his free will, he says, I want to obey. I want to obey. If you could take this cup from me, do it. Okay, nevertheless, I'm going to do it. I hate everything that I see. I hate what my people are going to go through. I hate what the world, my people are going to go through. I hate the deception coming on the world. I hate the darkness. I hate the disease. I hate all of this. Couldn't it be done a different way? But the answer is no. Your will means this is the only way. I accept your opinion that this is the only way. And so I'm going to go through that. That's what John is trying to say. So John testified about him and cried out, saying, "This was he of whom I said, he who comes after me has a higher rank than I, for he existed before me." He has to keep saying this, right? He has, yes, okay, we're not ready for that, all right. So now, did John know that Yeshua, his cousin, was in fact the Messiah? No.
He left in the belly, but
His
that,
wording
yeah.
doesn't say it.
He knew him.
Because later on he asked, hey, is he,
When
asked
he
him if
was
he's the
in prison.
Messiah.
No, remember, I saw the dove.
Yeah.
That's when I got it.
Yeah.
When I saw the dove descend.
Oh,
I didn't know it before. I knew there was one coming. I knew Isaiah was right. I knew I was the announcer.
You just shipped to John the Baptist, not John.
Yeah. Yes, Larry, you're right.
John the Baptist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's mentioned in this chapter.
Yeah. So where did I depart from?
But this is what I was saying in the past too.
Yeah,
that's-
John testified and cried out. This is John the immerser. It's not John the writer.
Well,
We're talking about
John-
John the
Yeah.
Baptist.
I thought the Baptist and the immerser were the same people.
Yeah,
They
so
are.
he was
It
mentioned
is.
in the-
The writer of the book of John is not the Baptist.
Yeah, this,
Okay, so
right,
he's-
the disciple. in
so
Yeshua.
he's using John in the second person here.
Yes,
Third
Yeah.
person,
Third
not third person.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I see that scenario just like the transfiguration in the hill with Peter. John, the immerser, saw the 3 and 1 and 1 and 3. You know, because he sees the Holy Spirit in the physical form of the dove. He hears the voice, and then he sees the Son. So that image to him must have been really
How did he know that it was Elijah and Moses?
Yeah, they didn't have pictures.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
It was in the
Exactly.
same way that we recognize Yeshua as the Messiah by revelation. Flesh and blood has not revealed.
Do you think that John the Baptist and Jesus knew each other growing up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they
No
were
question.
awesome.
But he didn't know who he was.
Yeah, because they never talk about early years of Jesus.
Yeah.
And then the question is, did Yeshua know who he was?
That's
You
true.
know,
Maybe.
maybe.
I wonder.
He's early on in the temple teaching.
Well, he had an idea because his mother, Elizabeth, Maria,
So she told him the story. But he had to work that out, right?
Yeah, no, the question is whether Yeshua knew that he was going to be the chosen one.
At some point, yes, and the question is, how young would that be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when he was at the temple teaching the rabbi, he had the knowledge. It was
He had
like
that knowledge.
way
Where
beyond.
would I be but my father's house? Yeah.
Trying to explain the triune nature of God. Elohim isn't that the translation in Genesis 1? And isn't that a plural word in Hebrew? A noun?
It's a sticky wicket. It is a plural. It is a plural, but it can also be a plural majestus, which is like when a queen says, we will receive you now. It was just her,
Yeah.
you know. But I think maybe the Bible purposely made it a plural.
Thinking the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Because there is three.
that's
words.
kind of something I thought in the past.
Yeah.
but
I think it is. I think this
I mean,
maybe
that's what the
the
language.
pluralis
Genesis 1.
majestus. That's right.
The Genesis 1 chapter. That's the language there. That
Let us
us,
make
that's
man in our image is
Yeah,
pretty clear.
wow, yeah.
All right, let's take a look at 16. For of his fullness we have all received. Now here's a key phrase. And grace upon grace. Grace upon grace, right? The law was given through Moses. Grace and truth were realized through Yeshua the Messiah. Okay? The law was given through Moses. Grace and truth. Grace isn't mentioned with Moses, but grace and truth both come together, right? God's working, God's initiation of covenant, and the truth of that covenant is realized fully in what? Through Yeshua. It comes into existence. Ginomai means that to to come into existence through Yeshua. So what is it, grace? Hanti grace. It means like waves of grace. What was given by Moses is grace. The Torah is grace. God gave the Torah to limit transgression. He had mercy. People are going to slaughter themselves out of existence. So he gives them rules and regulations that are according to his character, that will limit what we can do with one another or to one another. Right? So that's a grace. Yeshua coming into the scene is also a grace. It's the same grace, only the fulfillment now has grace and the truth of what was meant for all this time crystallized in him. You catch that? So when God dealt with mankind at each stage, the two big stages is Moses and Yeshua. Right? He doesn't say Moses, David, and Yeshua. He said Moses, that's the big event, right? Charleston Heston and the whole thing. Right? So that's a grace.
Go Chuck.
Yeah. That's a grace. It's that same grace of God initiating the covenant through Yeshua. But the truth that is attached to grace comes into being in its fullness through the promised one, through the Messiah, through Yeshua. Is that clear? Same grace there, It's not like the Torah's for then, but not now. That's not the issue. John's not preaching that. No one's preaching that. Okay? The Torah is still part of the law of Israel and so forth and so on, but that has nothing to do with the accomplishment. The Torah is not the accomplishment of salvation. It restrains evil. That's its purpose. Oh, how I love your law. It teaches me. It pushes me in a direction. It corrects me. It gets my mind fixed on you. It gives me a course correction when I'm kind of wandering off. It shows me your character. You care about a little mommy bird and her eggs, and I can't take the eggs and the mommy bird because you don't want to break the life cycle. Yeah, that's compassion. Like I would have taken both, right? Take the bird, the little meat, and take the egg. And yeah. But your Torah shows your character. So the grace that was shown is the grace that is shown. But they come together with truth because that truth has been building century upon century through the scriptures, through the interpretation, and gets fulfilled in the Messiah. And Ginomai becomes into existence through Yeshua. Okay? So Yeshua it's not just another religion. I studied comparative religions. It was a waste of time. Really, I'm telling you, it was a total waste of my time. Anybody that wants to do it, go for it. But so it's a waste of your time and effort, in my opinion. Because grace and truth, if you want truth, it comes through the Jewish scriptures, not through the Muslim scriptures, not through the Zoroasters, not through the Hindus, not through the Buddhists. It comes through the scriptures that have come down to us with a contiguous 4,000-year history through the Jewish people who you can recognize as a people today. You dig up fragments of the Bible that are 2,300 years old, whole book of Isaiah, 2,300 years old. There's nothing like it. Contiguous history, contiguous development of prophecy. Grace and truth are combined here, right? Okay, so question?
Curious though, the Dead Sea Scrolls had the book of Isaiah, and now they found the one that was 200 years older than that one. Again, the book of Isaiah. Why can't we find an original Torah,
Here's the problem. I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is the problem of sects. S-E-C-T-S. The Sadducees, we can find lots and lots of Leviticus because they preserved, that was their text. Okay? So they preserved that, boy, you don't let that fall to the ground or you're a goner. That's got to be preserved. Or to the Qumran community, you can find Isaiah. Lots of Isaiah.
Yeah.
You can find Ezekiel. You can find the book of Jubilees. You can find First Enoch. You can find all these apocalyptic books, okay? Because they preserved, and that was their books, right? So in this fragmentation, it was not that common that everybody had all of the books. That's the problem, right? So over a period of time, somebody takes off a page, they take off, a foreign king buys a section, so forth and so on, but the sects preserve their guys, their books.
So
That's why
what
we
we
have
have as the Torah today may not be as it was written by Moses.
Well, let's put it this
Or-
way.
or Pretty close, I guess, but
Yeah, there could be some differences, okay? The infallibility and inerrancy guys are gonna kill me on this thing. But let's put it this way, If we compare, the Masoretic text comes from a text, a full codex of the Bible. 10th century, okay? You can talk about 900 CE. And you compare that with a text that is 1,200 years younger, and all you get is spelling errors or a few names or a few numbers, but no essential change in the story or the lines of the story. To me, if they can preserve it for 2,300 years, there's no reason in my mind, because in the ancient world, remember, things were done how? Not everybody had written anything. They were memorized. They were done as sacred drama. You acted these things out. And so, when people memorize their lines, I don't know about you, but my son knows every line of Star Wars, every one. And all those kids, they know every single line, and they're never wrong. And I don't know how they do it, but they do it. Or somebody memorizes the lines. I saw Peter O'Toole. He was in his 80s at that time, and he recited a line for a whole bunch of lines from Lawrence of Arabia, which he enjoyed doing. And I thought to myself, how in the world? Because they were rehearsed so many times that they were just ingrained.
well, this last trip to Israel, I know I've told a couple of people this one, but our last official visit site was at the Garden Tomb. And we had our biblical teaching there, and then we were taking communion. And I asked Karen, who was our tour leader, if I should do the prayers for bread and wine in Hebrew and in English. And she said, please go ahead. So I did, one at a time. And then she asked me to tell the whole group as one the story of my 5-year journey to the second trip to Israel. And while I was talking, what came to me was that there were, since my bar mitzvah, and when I just stopped and going to synagogue, since my bar mitzvah, I had 2 prayers that were memorized completely verbatim. That was for bread and wine. Why those 2, I can't answer, but they sure came in handy that day.
But look how well you did with such a gap in time.
Yeah.
The point is,
I mean, the Hanukkah candles, I do that, and I continue to do that every year, but I still have to get it printed out and read it because I don't have them memorized.
so that's really been, in the ancient world, really up to modern times, it's been certainly the Jewish way, but generally, because the written word was so precious, it's scarce. That was the way that people handed down scriptures.
Yeah.
So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a look at John 1:18. John 1:18. And I want you to look up this word in your Bible. I don't know what it says. No man has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. Look up the word declare. Okay.
What version is that?
That's KJV. It doesn't matter which version. But take a look at the word. You can find it in Bible Hub. You can find it in many different places. And just check it out and be ready to discuss that. And you at home there, same thing. That word made him known. Okay.
That's the complete Jewish Bible.
Okay.
It says made him known.
Okay. So we'll take a look at that a little more carefully and then be ready to discuss that.
Can I read you mine?
Yeah.
It says, no one has ever seen God. but the one and only Son, who is himself God, and is in the closest relationship with the Father, has made him known.
Okay,
That's how I feel.
okay.
Yes, and
So made him known. All right, take a look at the word. Declared. You can easily look it up, online. There are many good sources online. And be ready to discuss that. And again, it's going to give you more of what we've just talked about, that grace and truth are combined, right? To be what? To manifest itself, to become exposed, if you will, through Yeshua the Messiah. It'll be a little faster once we get through chapter 1. But chapter 1 is foundational. I mean, it's crucial that we understand chapter 1.
So the
Huh?
word declared on how, if I search it in Google, because that's how, what should I search under? If I just put.
John
declared,
1:18. Search in Bible Hub. Bring that verse up in Bible
Is
Hub.
it Bible Hub dot,
No, just Bible Hub. It'll come up.
oh, just put it in
Google
the
that,
search,
Bible Hub.
okay. Bible Hub.
All right, that's your assignment as well. Thank you for joining us. As you see, it was a lively discussion. It will be. John is an exciting book. Hope to see you Saturday morning at 9:30 for an exciting Torah study, at 10:30 for our services. And then after our own egg, which is our meal together, we will have are we having the foundations class or Hebrew starting? Foundation. Last foundations class.
Last class.
I'm not sure. And then in 2 weeks, we'll start beginning Hebrew again. At the same time, we're going to have our Kadima class for the teens. And so it's going to be a great weekend. Hope you joined us for the Seder. It was fantastic. And everybody that came seemed to really be touched by the Lord. So hope to see you Saturday. Come. If you need our mailing address for any reason, 131 Forsyth Street, Norfolk, Virginia, 23505. Okay, God bless you. See you next time.